Welcome back to Your Story, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the age of cybersecurity and why we need cyber peace in the digital era. I've got with me Vineet Kumar, who is the founder and president of Cyber Peace Foundation. A little bit about Vineet Kumar, okay? Vineet Kumar is the founder of Cyber Peace Foundation. He is a social entrepreneur and social activist with 20 years of extensive work experience in the field of cyber peace, cybersecurity, and internet governance. He is the founder and president of Cyber Peace Foundation and chairman of the National Anti-Hacking Group, or NAG. He is an alumnus of Cranfield University, of course. The United Kingdom is where he studied at, and he also specialized in cyber defense and information assurance and has studied leadership at Cambridge University, UK. Vineet was also the CTO and head of the Cyber Defense and Research Center at the Government of Jharkhand. Vineet is an advisory of several committees, okay? And most of these committees are run by UN agencies and the Government of India. He's also on the advisory board of Public Interest Registry, USA. Vineet is a recipient of several awards. He's got 8 international awards, 18 national awards, 13 state awards, and several honors on his social mission. He's been on this front line for over 20 years, of course, and he's a believer that multi-stakeholders should come together for cyber inclusion. He has led several joint efforts to fight cybercrime and to handle international cyber conflict issues. Vineet, that's quite a resume that you have. Welcome to Your Story. How are you?
I'm good, Vishal. Thank you for the very, very long introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here.
No, it's not often do I meet a man or a woman who's done so much in something that they believe in. I usually meet business people who are very focused, and for somebody from a foundation to be in the center of everything, be it business, be it policy making, be it cyber inclusion, which is something completely new to me. What made you start this? I mean, a person with your caliber could have gone off and become a CTO of a large organization, earned a ton of money, but you chose to do this. Why?
Well, Vishal, I had been clear right from the beginning when I was in the school. Probably I was in the 5th or the 6th grade when I had made this point that I will end up in fact, running a social organization, and I'll become a social activist who will work on this particular problem. So that's how it started. Luckily, I was introduced to computers and internet at a very early stage. In fact, thanks to my dad, who was here, he worked for a PSU, and he was into IT. He was the one who set up the IT infrastructure of the PSU, started programming and probably late 70s, early 80s, very when technology penetration was in fact very new in India. So that's how he had been one guide who was there with me, and that's a little inspiration that I got and support that I got from him. That's how I was able to take it on. In a city like Ranchi, that was another challenge because I come from Ranchi, and you can understand the startup culture in Ranchi. In fact, it was nothing at that time.
Yes.
People were of the belief that you either become an engineer or a doctor. Anything else is something bad for the family. So, talking about startups, talking about my own enterprise, when I actually went out and spoke about it to people, and that too with a strange idea. When I said I'll probably start an anti-hacking organization, people said he's a fool. He'll waste his career. He'll waste his entire life, and that was the kind of motivation that I got from the society back then. But again, thanks to my parents and also the well-wishers who were there with me, who believed in this idea.
Okay.
And actually how it started, it was a very strange journey. In fact, it was probably 1997, in fact, when I was actually there, in fact, in my dad's office. And back then, in fact, internet was very new. In fact, you would remember that through dial-up modems and all, we used to connect, and that's how things happen. And
I still remember that sound. Chick, 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 chick,
tick
chick.
tick tick wala connecting sound. So with me, in fact, it was I we used to dial a STD line from Ranchi to Calcutta, and over the STD line we used to get internet. So after my dad used to finish his office works, it was just sending emails and getting the responses in 1997. Then I used to request for an additional 1 minute for me to explore what internet is and learn how everything, how does an email go and how do you get a response. So this was very interesting to me. So slowly and slowly, what I did was, in fact, I started asking him, learned about email. There was no Google at that time. In our age, there was no Google, no Facebook, nothing. So we used to actually search here and there, somewhat trying to gather information. And there was one channel, Internet Relay IRC was very popular that time. So IRC had different kinds of channels, and one of the channel was basically a hackers channel. So I got into that channel. In fact, through some input that I got into that channel. I interacted with few hackers there. Some of them were black hats. Now there are three categories.
I
Yeah,
know.
mainly three categories. There are though many categories, but black hat, white hat, and gray hat. But in that forum, it was mostly black hat hackers. So I interacted with them. One of them actually showed me a live hack of a bank. Now that excited me quite a lot, and immediately after a few hours, he hacked my own PC. So he showed me the document that I had, and I was like taken aback. Now, what would happen if my dad gets to know? But he didn't damage anything. But that was the point, and it attracted me quite a lot. And this also gave me an idea that I should get into this field, because that was so interesting that I'll get into this space. But I'll not hack. Probably I'll hack, but I'll hack for good, not to destroy or create any kind of destruction. So that's how it started. In fact, the hacker who was there, in fact, I requested him to guide me, mentor me, but what he did was he just showed me a couple of tutorials, and that's it. He said, "You find your own way." But that's how it began. The journey began, and slowly through research and development, R&Ds and all, in fact, we progressed. In the year 2001, in fact, is when the idea of setting up National Anti-Hacking Group came. Met few like-minded people. In fact, started interacting with them, started researching. Again, limited resources and Ranchi. Consider the entire geography also. Whatever we could do, the best we could do, we did. In fact, my dad was kind enough to give me a pocket money of 500 rupees. In fact, every month I used to save those pocket money, and in fact, in fact went to a cyber cafe that time. I said, "Can you give me a student discount and a package to access the internet?" So he again in 500, he probably gave me, it was 100 rupees per hour that time. So he gave me 5 hours that you can consume in a month. So that was my testing ground. In fact, my dad also funded, in fact, some of the certification programs that I thought I should undertake at that point of time, the popular ones in the year 2000, 2001. So I undertook some of the certification programs and got a good grasp of networking, programming, operating systems, and also it attracted me. The space attracted me, and then when I met these like-minded people, I threw this idea that why not we do something for the social good. Now, internet, somewhat, I had a feel that the cyberspace will grow, and at some point of time, this will come with a challenge. Like at that point, in fact, the challenges were very limited here in India, though some challenges had started in the Western world, but in India, in fact, these crimes and all were unheard of. Yeah, IT Act, in fact, for that matter, IT Act 2000 was enacted in the year 2000, so it was fairly new, in fact. So
And the definition of cybercrime was more theft or
yes,
physical theft of data
yes,
than
yes,
real cybercrime.
the real cyber crimes. Yes, it was actually taken from the Western world, again tweaked slightly, and that's how it was pushed. But it was again very vague, but it had nothing much in fact into it. But 2008 it got amended, but yes, at that point of time it was fairly new. So, but then I had one thing that I'd like to give back something to the society. Whatever I learn, whatever knowledge I get, if I will hack, I'll hack for good. So when I met these like-minded people again, so from the year 2001 to 2003 was again meeting the right kind of guys in different forums. Like I mentioned, IFC was the Mecca and Medina for me, where I used to go and get the access to these people. It was temple for me actually. So I used to get access to these resources, people, actually ask them for different kinds of websites and forums when I can get access to the material and learn myself. Plus, again, I missed one part of the story that my dad gifted me a second-hand computer because he said he thought that I'm annoying him too much by visiting his office. So he thought that he'll gift me a second-hand computer on my birthday, and that's how I got. So I started researching at my home again. But yes, it eventually led to, I mean, I would say expensive telephone bills and all, which became a problem later. But yes, that's how I started. And through these researches in all, 2003 is when we set up the National Anti-Hacking Group. Again, we got good set of hackers.
Yes.
And in the year 2003, there were cyber attacks. If you still search probably on Google, you'll find some of the archives mentioning that there were cyber attacks between cyber war between India and Pakistan-based hackers. So Indian guys used to deface Pakistani websites. Pakistani guys used to deface Indian websites. So we felt, okay, fine, we have the same knowledge, but we'll use the knowledge for something good. Because during the defacement, a lot of innocent organization, individuals and organization, they used to lose valuable data that they had. Modernization, e-commerce was fairly new. In fact, it was picking up very initial days. And I would say 99% of the websites which were there at that time were vulnerable. 99%, be it government, be it private, be it any non-profit, all of these websites who came where they were completely vulnerable. So we thought that we'll get these guys. What we'll do is we'll scan for the vulnerabilities in these websites and then inform the admin that you have these bugs. And so that would be our way of giving back. Then secondly, we started doing awareness programs because we realized that people on the ground have no idea about cyber crimes. What is a cyber crime? Nobody had a clue what is a cyber crime and how a crime gets conducted. So that's how these awareness programs were started in schools, universities. Again, nobody used to treat us well because they thought we are talking about a subject which does not exist. So it was not a welcome. It was not an easy movement for us like it is today. Fast forward 2020, I see everybody knows, in fact, cybersecurity. In fact, cybersecurity startups are heavily funded now. That is, we had the toughest time, in fact, convincing people, convincing VCs, even convincing probably these companies to, I mean, look after the cybersecurity. So that's how the journey started. The first recognition that we got was in the year 2006 when we were covered on the front page of a very popular tech magazine, Digit, Think Digit.
Yes.
And
Those
they
days,
mentioned,
Digit was the go-to place.
yes, yes, and I still remember that was like we got that celebrity status after it got published on the cover page, and they mentioned as the protectors of the nation's data. So that's how things started, and slowly again, one
Okay.
major vision I would say or mission was to again achieve a peaceful cyberspace, so that the cyberspace is known for good.
Yeah.
If you go by the exact definition, what cyberpeace is, it is the ultimate stage of trust, safety, security on the internet is basically what we refer to as cyber peace. So this is what this with this objective we went ahead, and whatever we could do, whether it comes to policy, whether it came to research, whether it came to outreach, whether it came to collaboration, it was all aligned to that particular vision. In fact, so National Anti-Hacking Group, then series of awareness campaigns, research. In fact, and later on, the government of Jharkhand also felt that I should probably give myself, when I got a
Yeah.
UN award in the year 2008, in fact, for actually working in the space. So recognition started from the year 2007 when I got the IT People Award. It was one of the most popular award that time. So these recognitions happened. The government started recognizing our effort. I got an opportunity to serve the government also as the head of a state agency in Jharkhand.
Nice.
Again, Jharkhand being one of the state, in fact, very few people know that probably it was the first state. It was, in fact, not probably, it was the first state in the country to set up its own cyber defense research center, and probably ninth in the whole world. That's how the media quoted, but it was basically a model state when it set up the agency. So it was a fairly a new territory for us, in fact, and whatever we could do, in fact, it was again aligning to the same vision of building a peaceful cyberspace. Yeah. So
No,
that's how.
that's fantastic. You also had a startup called Security Brigade, or it was an
Yeah.
IT services company. I mean, for those
Yeah.
of you watching this, this should tell you that why you need to be cyber secure today. It is a very interesting aspect that Vineet's brought in. While we spoke about dial-up internet all the way up to the first cyber attacks on government PSU websites in 2003, which both of us have unfortunately lived through, you know, it is something that's become table stakes today, and we're going to get into that in a bit. Vineet, you were right. 2003, when I was at the Indian Express, I tried to visit a website of the government of Karnataka's website, right? And it went off to a porn site. It was completely hacked. You're absolutely right. And the government had no way of protecting themselves at that point of time. A lot has changed since. If you can tell our audience, what are the few tenets of the Cyber Peace Foundation? Who are the stakeholders that you're bringing together and why? You mentioned in a line that it is for cyber peace, right? Where everybody should be secure. It's a great way to interact. Obviously, the internet is a progress in mankind. It is, I mean, after the agri revolution, industrial revolution, I think, the technology revolution could have only been possible with the internet. And it is this human progression that's very important for you, I'm sure. If you can tell us what are the few tenets that you go by in this foundation, it'd be lovely.
Yes, actually, in fact, if you talk about the cyberspace also, and in fact, or now, in fact, talking about 2020, 1 billion connected users just in India is what the IMAI has predicted. This year itself, we are going to have 1 billion internet connections. So almost the size of the Indian population is the internet users.
Yeah,
So if you
yeah.
ask about the stakeholders, it's everyone who is a stakeholder, because everyone today, in some or the other way, is using technology, whether it comes to net banking, whether it comes to ticket booking, or whether it comes to working in the IT world, or a common netizen, a common citizen is also using this citizen services on the web world. So everybody today is a stakeholder. So primarily, in fact, Cyber Peace Foundation works with the UN agencies,
Hmm.
because one thing that I want to specify here, that cyberspace does not have a boundary. Like for countries, you have boundaries. You know the boundary. India has this boundary. China has this boundary. Is fighting for boundaries only here. But in cyberspace, actually, it's all virtual. There's no boundary. So that is a big challenge, in fact, and different countries think differently. In fact, people try to, in fact, forge a claim also that cyberspace belongs to them. Some countries have done that in the past, but it is actually something that belongs to the community. Cyberspace does not belong to one country, one nation, but it belongs to everyone.
And neither
So
does it
it's the
belong to a corporation. It belongs to everybody.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes. So that's how. If you talk about the stakeholders, stakeholders are everyone. Stakeholders are non-profits. Stakeholders are industry, academia, civil society, normal common people. Everybody is a stakeholder, and so we work with everyone. Anybody who is facing a problem in the cyberspace is basically our stakeholder, and that's how we work with them. We try to actually try to help them in the way we can, whether it comes to helping them in certain set of crimes that happen. For example, a ransomware attack that happened with a startup, we've been working with them also to contain the problem, advising them on how they can strengthen their infrastructure. We work with the SMEs also, because SMEs have almost zero budget on cybersecurity, and same goes with startup. So we are working with them, those who actually have don't have that kind of setup. We, through our
Mm.
small team, we don't have a big team, but whatever bandwidth we have, we try and help these particular organizations in creating a safe and stable cyberspace.
Okay. Do you want to get into each of the stakeholders? Shall we take them through one by one and their preparedness? That way, they'll be aware that why the Cyber Peace Foundation is very important for them to be part of. Let's
Yeah.
start with the ordinary citizen.
Yeah.
Okay. What does the ordinary citizen have to look at when he thinks about cyber space and cyber peace? Because you were right. Today, information and devices is completely available,
Hmm.
but they're not aware of security. How should the citizen handle it?
So see, I mean, that is a major problem. In fact, majority of the calls that we get today is from ordinary citizens, because everybody's user of the OTT platform is the user of basically different services that the government is offering. Now, in fact, there's also a prediction that government is going to distribute free phones at some point of time.
Correct.
It's going to charge for the services. So people will get gadgets. In fact, rural areas, connectivity is going, in fact, to the rural areas also now. So that's how the challenges start. People start using technology, but they don't know how it can be misused. For example, imagine the first time user. In fact, there have been a lot of frauds in the name of KBC, Kaun Banega Crorepati, where people got calls claiming call from Amitabh Bachchan, and Amitabh Bachchan is inviting them to the show, and for invitation they need to pay X amount. And these innocent people, they just paid that money. Same way, there are a lot of calls. We have a lot of hotbeds. In fact, and just today, probably it was Indian Express or some newspaper. I was reading that article where it mentioned that there are many hotspots now. Now, there was one hotspot till around few years back, a place called as Jamtara. You must have seen the episode on Netflix. In fact, there's a very famous series called as Jamtara.
Yes.
So it's like the cyber crime capital of the country. It has been quoted internationally. At one point of time, in fact, people are not having money to sustain themselves, have 3 meals a day. And one fine day, somebody came, there was a little bit of capacity building program that happened. And now, if you go to that village, now you'll find multi-storied buildings in that village on an average two, three, four-wheelers in every house. So that's how things change. And one thing that has started happening is more and more people are getting into this space, getting into the positive side as well as the negative side. So that's how the common people, if you ask about the common people, there are issues about hacking incidents, issues about their Facebook ID getting hacked, Instagram ID getting hacked, issues of revenge porn happening, issues of child sexual abuse material getting circulated. People are unaware, they're unaware and they're doing crimes unknowingly. So these are the issues that we are trying to address with the consumers, people at the ground level, trying to teach them basically about cyber hygiene, something that they should know, the
Right.
basic minimum about cyberspace that they should know. So that's how it's happening
That
with the
is,
people on the ground. Yeah.
so they can come to your foundation website and check out more information to know about. I mean, it's a simplified version of how you have to be secure. Also, that's an interesting point you made. What about our governments and law enforcement agencies? Nowadays, you see a lot of movies around cybersecurity. It's almost become like a, not just a buzzword, but almost like a cult kind of a thing where these guys are fighting international actors like black hats versus white hats. That gets told. Netflix had this. Netflix or Prime had this series called Robot,
Yes.
right, which was on cybercrime. Very interesting point in time where nations are almost struggling to understand the cyber world. How do you advise governments and law enforcement agencies to view view cybersecurity? Because they look at it as a thing that they have to control, but they have no idea where to start, where to end, right? It doesn't, because it's a difficult time to be in that space.
Yes. So like I mentioned again, if you compare 2020 with 2003, a lot of things have changed.
Mhm.
In fact, now I see there is a push within the government to again strengthen the cyber security. And you must have seen the Prime Minister addressing on the Red Fort and mentioning cyber security, that India is going to come out with a cyber security strategy. Now, this is something that was missed earlier. In fact, we had the cyber security policy, but we are not having the strategy. Now, policy is incomplete without a strategy. So strategy comes first, and then there are
That's
policy
true.
aligned to the strategy. So we have been missing all these years. So now I believe things are going on the right track. But yes, if you again talk about the control that people should have, now this is a dialogue that can go on, because some people feel that government should not control cyberspace. There are social activists
Correct.
who are there. There are people who are there. People talk about free speech and several other stuff. So this is a dialogue that is going on and off. But one thing that governments really need to do is learn how to tackle disinformation, misinformation, which is basically in times of COVID. Also, there has been a lot of misinformation that was spread, and a lot of people, in fact, were targeted. A lot of people lost money in terms of COVID-19 vaccine and all that. So they should know how to tackle. And now, in fact, I see law enforcement agencies also putting a lot of, resources, and they're putting a strong budget to increase their capability in terms of doing investigations on the ground. Now, this is still a challenge because there are still some of the, I would say, the crimes that gets conducted out of India becomes a challenge, because most of these providers, they have servers outside India. Now, a
Yeah.
crime that conducted here in India may not be a crime in the other country, may not be a crime in the US. So people can outrightly deny. If a request goes from the Indian law enforcement agencies to US, they might deny we don't treat it as a crime. So this is still a challenge. And if you talk about relief on the ground, this is one reason why we are also struggling. Because on an average, if a crime is conducted from a foreign nation, it takes around 5 months for a law enforcement agency to get data. from a foreign nation.
Wow.
If it's not a child-related matter, for child-related matter, responses are really quick, but non-child related matters like normal cases of revenge porn, financial fraud, and all, it takes around 5 to 6 months. And imagine 6 months time, if the data comes to the law enforcement, it is too late for them to act. So these kinds of challenge, the MLAT process is quite old. So we need to redo, and that's how there are a lot of discussion dialogues that are happening that we should have probably an international cyber law. Why
Okay.
we have a Indian IT Act, and why do we have a, for example, an act in the US, a different act in the US? We should have, because cyberspace does not have a boundary, we should have just one act, and that act should be common for all. So, but then again, so this discussion and dialogues are
Yeah.
going off. In terms of internet governance, also, in fact, there are many internet governance forums that are happening. In fact, in UN, is slowly and slowly different UN agencies are trying to get into the picture so that we are able to come to a conclusion. But as of now, I feel that we are still in a nascent stage. We have done a lot. We have walked much ahead now, but still a lot more need to be done. So
Okay.
I think
Okay.
another 10 years or so, and we should have an answer to this. How do we actually control the space? Yeah.
Do you think the data law that may come up soon and the cyber law must be combined? Because data, without data and cybersecurity go hand in hand, because we're talking about data theft, because you said misinformation, disinformation. There's also lots of fake news, right? And so it's all data. When you look at the digital world, it's data footprint,
Yes.
right? There, that's the trail that we leave today. Do you think that should come under one law, or the reason I bring this up is because I needed your thoughts on how does how does a country like China or US view cybersecurity? Do they have separate laws? Governance is different. Purely looking at it from a government perspective, because I know government and corporates think very differently, right?
Yes. Yes.
Government, because it's a state, and the state thinks that it has to protect its citizens, thinks very differently. Whereas a corporate is about business profits, its various stakeholders, right? So can you tell us a little bit of how this data law and cyber law should probably come together, maybe, and also the view from the globe, please?
Yes, so we are, in fact, we are yet to see the Data Protection Act, in fact, and that is something
Mhm.
where, in fact, a lot of suggestions have been taken by the government from civil society organizations like us, industry, academia, and everyone. So we don't know the final version now, but yes, at some stage it would definitely come. And I feel it's the need of the hour. Plus the IT Act, which is currently there, that also needs an amendment. And what
Yes.
I've heard from the folks in the ministry, that the government is going to come up with a new version of the IT Act. I'm sure that it will undertake a lot of new areas, like the IT Act was amended last in 2008. Now, in 2008, we didn't see the world of IoTs, we didn't see the world of autonomous vehicles and everything. After 12 years, in fact, we are now surrounded by AI, ML, AR, VR, connected cars, driverless cars. It's all surrounded by tech. So I'm sure government is working on in this particular area, and that's what I've heard
Okay.
also. And we must
Okay.
we may soon have it. Well, what we were missing, like I mentioned earlier, also we are missing on the strategy part. So strategy part should come. That's what the other countries have done. Like if you talk about UK, because I've studied UK, I've seen what they have been doing. So UK had a cyber strategy, a very powerful strategy, and then the policies which were aligned to the strategy, and then different acts. Like in India also, I'm sure different acts are going to come up. Like for example, there should be again different kinds of rules and procedures laid out when it comes to intermediaries. Now, there are many intermediaries now. So, what are the liabilities of the intermediaries? So, all that is getting discussed, debated now. And like I mentioned, it will take few years. It's not something that you expect that overnight we should have all these acts and policies in place. It would take few years. And I feel in few years' time we should be in a good position. In fact, all these acts and procedures.
Okay.
But provided the government consults different stakeholders, it should not be something that they make an act on their own, like they have been doing so far, is reaching out to different stakeholders, hearing to them, also connecting to people on the ground. like understanding what are the challenges on the ground level reality, what are the issues that people are facing in the rural areas, urban areas, what are the issues that researchers are facing. So they should have inputs from all these different people from different walks of life, and then that's how it should lead to proper act in place, or the strategy should be centered around that. So that's one suggestion that basically I'd like to give to the government once they come up with it.
Yeah, that's a valid point too. Include everybody, be inclusive, don't hurry things. But the need of the hour is also the corporate guys. As I mean, most of the I mean, I see 1,300 GICs in India, global innovation centers, all of them in the forefront of technology research and cybersecurity being in the forefront of them. Right? I mean, they are really pioneers.
Right.
How do you see these global actors? Because corporations don't have boundaries. They may be registered in the US to some degree, or Japan, or Germany, or China, but a corporation today is stateless, it's boundaryless, and they have a responsibility towards cybersecurity. How can they work with government, citizens to have some kind of a meaningful approach to cyber peace?
Yes, so like I mentioned, is again the challenges that we see right now on the ground is that law enforcement, government, they don't get data on time. So
Yes,
one thing that is the need of our is to be responsive. For example, these companies do have offices here in India. For example, entity in US. I'll not name different entities,
yeah,
but
let's not name them. Yeah,
it's across. So they have Indian offices also. But when it comes to getting responses from them, we still have a tough, I would say, kind of
legal time with them.
legal time. They take a lot of time in responding. Again, they have to go as per the laws there in that specific country where the data centers are there. So there's a lot of debate that is happening where the government of India is also trying to push that we should have probably servers here in India. So there are talks about data localization. So,
Yes,
but then there is another dialogue also about the economy and different stuff, whether the India has that kind of ecosystem. So it's basically a debate that is going on. But
correct.
ultimately, what they should do, whether localization or no localization, that is something that doesn't matter me, frankly. What matters me as a non-profit, as a civil society organization, is these entities should respond to the government timely, on time. For example, whether it's a corporate, whether it's a non-profit, whether it's an individual like us, if we suffer from a cyber attack, for example, our Facebook ID gets defaced, or maybe if somebody in our family is a victim of revenge porn, if we reach out to the particular entity for data, for a quick response on actually getting sharing the details with the law enforcement agency, they should immediately share, which is not happening at this moment. And that's what they should do, because at some point of time they should feel liable, because I mean the users are there on that platform. They cannot simply say, no, we are not liable, somebody else is posting stuff, we are not, we are just a platform. Now that should not be an answer here. They should some way or the other way try to cooperate with the government, and that's how digital cooperation is the word. The digital cooperation should happen timely. I mean, sharing of data, details, information should happen. So these are the stuffs which I feel is the first point
Yeah.
and an immediate step that should be
No,
taken.
it's a fair point. I mean, that's the only way a ecosystem can come together. And obviously, legal hassles are always going to, slow things down. But I think CEOs should, I think CEOs and the C-suite should take ownership of this, right? The key stakeholders should understand the importance of it. And I hope it happens. While the government and corporations are lugging it out for their own place in the sun in cybersecurity, we have young upcoming companies, different ideas, startups, SMBs who are really making the impact in the world with new innovation. Like you said, there are no budgets for cybersecurity. They need a platform. You see Cyber Peace Foundation playing a role?
Actually, that's how we are trying to contribute our bit. Recently,
Mhm.
we released a guide on again cybersecurity essentials for startups and SMEs, because this is what we found. In fact, through our different research teams, we found that there are a lot of attacks that are happening on the
Yeah,
startups and the SMEs. I'm not going to the big five or maybe Fortune 100 companies and all that. Attacks are happening everywhere. Many places, people don't disclose if they are breached, because they feel that again that will lead to again a defamation in the community
Yeah.
and the stocks and everything. So, but actually, if you talk about attacks are happening on basically the wide spectrum, whether it is the Fortune 100 companies, whether it is startups, it is all across. And post, in fact, after COVID, in fact, we have seen an increase, a surge in the number of attacks, especially attacking the startups and SMEs, because most of the startups today are sitting on tons of data. Now,
Correct. Correct.
gather n number of data, and suddenly one fine day you find all the data is found on the dark web. So that becomes a big challenge where they lose reputation. The data gets leaked and they lose reputation. So what we have done as Cyber Peace Foundation, we have been assisting these startups and SMEs who have no budget. We do complimentary discovery assessment, vulnerability assessment, pen testing. Plus, we have a complete guide where we also help them in making cybersecurity policies for their startup, for the SME. We have quick checklist also what to do, how do you generate awareness among employees. So we have made those standard kits which they can take it, customize it, and plug and play in their basically company or startup. So that's what we have been doing. So this is cybersecurity essentials for startups and SMEs, and we'll be very happy to help any such startups and SMEs who don't have an IT budget. They can reach out to us and we'll be very happy to help. Plus,
Okay.
what we additionally do is, in fact, many individuals, CXOs, and in fact, companies, again, companies of all sizes, they in fact ask their employees also to volunteer with us. So they engage with us, they volunteer with us, they work with us, we engage them into different awareness campaigns, different research projects so that they learn and we also benefit out of it. So we'll be very happy to
Nice.
assess such companies.
Okay. Meanwhile, guys, if you want to access that report, go to the Cyber Peace Foundation website. They will help you with it. That's available, right? Vineet, there?
Yes, that's on the website. In fact, if you go to the resources section, that's where we have listed the handbook, the cybersecurity
Okay.
handbook. Yes.
Okay. If you advise these guys in a few, say in a couple of minutes, if you had to take a couple of minutes to advise them on cybersecurity is not like buying cyber software on your laptop or your mobile phone where you spend about 1,000 rupees and say that look, my phone is secure, my device is secure. But if you're a company, it's just beyond these things. It's not just a tool that makes cybersecurity. It's much more than that. Vineet, your thoughts?
Yes, I do agree. It's not just a tool, but it's a culture, I would say. And this culture needs to go in. What I
Mhm.
feel is, in some form, in fact, that cyber security doesn't require a big investment. Now, for a SME and startup, what we generally advise is using open source tools. There are a lot of open source tools that are available that they can use it, and probably they can secure themselves from majority of the attacks that happen on their infrastructure. So that culture needs to come in, that thought process needs to come in for them to understand that this is an important area. Now, what we have also been
Mhm.
pushing is that there should be probably an independent director also in the companies who should know cybersecurity. Cybersecurity
Yeah.
is a boardroom issue. It's not a tech issue anymore. So it's a boardroom issue. The seriousness should happen like that. And in fact, investments again for big companies, there should be good amount of investments. Plus, need to be put in for the employee awareness at least. That's the lowest hanging fruit that they can get, at least to train their employees, make them aware about do's and don'ts, basic cyber hygiene, because they are the weakest link in the entire chain, and that weakest link needs to be secured. So these are some thoughts that I have, basic policies, basic procedures that need to have. What we have also observed is many companies do have policies in place. They do have, they in fact get themselves
Yes.
certified and everything, but everything remains on paper. When you say, where do you have the right kind
Okay.
of security controls, it's just a tick mark for them. Yes, we have firewalls in place, we have intrusion detection in place, we do conduct security audits and all, but that is just a checklist. So it should not be a checklist. It's not something that you are just complying, but it's something that you should feel that you should probably secure your infrastructure, secure your data, secure
Yeah.
yourself from
Yeah.
these kinds of attacks. And that's what you should do. Like when it comes to firewall, you need to do a secure configuration in the firewall. It's not just putting a device in place and forgetting, okay, Now I'm secure, my entire infrastructure is secure. You need to do a secure configuration. You need to review your strategy. You need to review your policies. What do you have? Check whether these things are being followed, and which is generally missing. That's what we have seen. It's generally missing. It's just a tick mark. It's just a tick mark on the paper and nothing much at this point of time.
Okay. Since you're a man who wants to collaborate with multi-level players, and I want to ask you, if startups are watching this, or if there are platforms watching this, and they came to you and said, let's get together, work with SMBs, let's work with startups, create some form of a transformation, cybersecurity kind of a platform for everybody. How would you monetize such a thing? Because are there enough people to back this kind of idea? The reason I'm throwing that up is because you have been an evangelist for this for 20 years. And the stakeholders are coming together. Yes, you're a policy influencing company, guiding company. You're also in a form doing consulting. But you see, if somebody comes to you and says, let's build a platform together where we create a studio, where we help all these startups transform themselves with cybersecurity, is it a possibility? And how would you monetize it?
Yes, that's definitely a possibility. And in fact, we have written a paper which is going to be published. And the paper's name is Outsourcing Cyber Peace. So, how do you crowdsource? Is like the idea that you mentioned. It's simply the idea that you mentioned. So, people come together, whatever resources you might have a studio. Somebody might be good in creating those awareness videos. Maybe somebody might be good into research. So, we just need to get people together and contribute and crowdsource cybersecurity, so that people who need, probably this acts like a repository.
Yes.
So anybody, the concept of cyber peace core, I'll just take a minute to apply
Yes.
the cyber peace core concept. So cyber peace core is something where we have people from the government, from the industry, from the academia, civil society. It's all together. People from all walks of life who are together. What we request them is that you need to spare one day in a week, maybe 1 month in a year. It's totally your call. Time is totally yours. You just go fill up the form on the website, come to us and say, hey guys, I'm interested to contribute on the research part of it. Whereas somebody would say, I'm interested to do awareness campaigns. So that's why we are making a pool of these volunteers who can come together.
Okay.
It acts like a platform. From the platform itself, we reach out to the people who need help.
Nice.
So that's the
So
entire.
that way you monetize it also, although you're non-profit, you can keep it growing because there are contributions coming in because of this.
Yes, so under CSR, corporate social responsibilities, there have been some donors who come in. There are many companies, like recently, in fact, we have been in touch with some of the, Fortune 500 companies also who are there, who in fact have made it mandatory for their employees to give back to the community, and they're tying up with us. In fact, so we are getting resources in terms of man hours, and that's what I call it as monetization. So in some cases, these companies have been kind enough to offer us grant to set up the entire model.
Yeah.
But in some cases, they have said we will be very happy to give you our manpower.
I hope people are watching this. I hope if there's a consortium of corporate that can actually support a venture studio model with the cyber piece, that'd be a fantastic idea as an ecosystem coming together to solve for startups. Because you were right, startups don't have a budget for IT. Not IT, pardon me, for security, cybersecurity. And it'd be a great resource for them, not just from learning literature, but also, like you said, what do you protect in your organization?
Yes.
What is the behavior change that you need? Right? These are some things. In 20 years for you, it must have been, you must be almost like a warrior trying to see that vision come across, right? For 20 years, you've been trying this. Is it hard?
Well, yes, like I mentioned, the initial 10 years have been really hard. So from 2011 onwards, we felt that now people have started hearing us. So, and now back in 2020, I think now people realize the importance. So there has been shift, and yes, the journey has been difficult, but going forward, I feel that now, in fact, people realize things have changed. People realize the importance of cybersecurity, and that is something which I see positive going in the community. And cybersecurity, like cyberspace, I mentioned, it does not have boundaries. For cybersecurity, it is not government who is probably liable to secure the entire cyberspace. It's people like us, individuals like us, organizations, companies, startups, SMEs, in fact, normal individuals, they all need to come together to secure the cyberspace, because everybody has to play a role. It's not something that one party, one individual, one organization can play a role here. Everybody, all of us need to play a role in whatever form we can play.
You mentioned all this, and so the role of the media. You studied in Cambridge, so I'm sure the media would have come into a picture in many ways because media eventually becomes the purveyor of information, right? And there's disinformation, there's misinformation, and there's information, right? And cybersecurity is is going haywire because they cannot track fake news. There are automated bots. There are bots that can write a whole story today and make it sound convincing.
Right.
How do you advise companies, or even what is the role of the media in this case? How does it handle this situation?
Well, media plays an important role. So when I said different stakeholders, it's plus media, it's including media there. So it has a very important role because there are different challenges which are now coming in. Like, for example, deepfake. Now, with deepfake coming in, the entire disinformation, misinformation scene has changed. In fact, it's very easy to actually get somebody, maybe impose somebody on somebody's face and deliver the kind of message that you want. So imagine the way it can spread. Imagine, like I'll give you a case study which happened a few years back when Associated Press, their official Twitter account were hacked, and somebody, the criminal, tweeted that there has been a blast in the White House and the president probably, I don't know the exact view that I don't remember, but probably they wrote that the president is no more, something like that they quoted. And immediately after that, the stock exchange crashed. There was completely panic all over. So that's what I would like to mention, that media plays a very important role. So when it comes to security, media is the first entity that should know the importance of security, and they need to secure themselves. Plus, in terms of, again, the information that is spread, I've seen many media houses actually quoting fake news. In fact, in the
And
stories that I came across, some of the local newspapers, a fake story, it is like on the front page of a newspaper, a local
yeah,
newspaper. So that's why we at CyberPeace also have been running media literacy campaigns on awareness, that how do you identify whether this video is real or fake, whether this news piece is real or fake. So we have been doing these awareness camps, and that's how media needs to learn this art, and media needs to learn how the information, disinformation spreads, and how do you identify and put the right information ahead, so that the users, the readers, actually get the correct information and not a misinformation piece that you see.
okay. Because we are on the sociology of the subject too, very important for me to bring this point: sociology of democracy and cybersecurity, right? Very important at this point of time. Uh, Democracies, like in the age of disinformation, misinformation, democracies around the world are a threat. How does one manage this? There are different NGOs putting on reports. Say you put out a report, there's another one saying, no, that is true, this is true. It has become such a world where nobody seems to trust what is coming out. I remember, we've gone to the era where states controlled everything, and we believed the state because we'd voted them in. In the cyber world, like you said, there's no boundaries. Nobody controls it. What is the future?
Well, the future is something that, if you ask me at this point of time, we are all here, in fact, trying to make the cyberspace cleaner and safer. In fact, the future, what I see is, obviously, like I mentioned, we are in the very initial stages. And as we progress ahead, I'm very sure that we'll have the right kind of strategies, laws, policies, everything in place, so that the cyberspace is known for good. It's not known for all negatives. Like in this call itself, we have been discussing the negatives, like we discussed disinformation, revenge porn, bullying, stalking, and all that, but we didn't discuss the positive aspect that the cyberspace has. So I see cyberspace will be used for good in the future. And people do say that a lot of people will lose jobs, but I'm not a believer of that statement. I feel it will give a lot of jobs to the to different people, provided they reskill themselves. It has opened doors for a lot of individuals. In fact, during the COVID times, also, you must have seen a lot of people running YouTube channels. They started cookery channel, and in fact, on the cookery channel itself, they started generating huge revenue on that channel. So it's full of, I would say, opportunities, provided we actually move on the right direction. And I feel we are taking baby steps, but moving in the right direction. But a lot more needs to be done.
Your final thoughts on on the world in general of startups and young business people aspiring to set up companies, of course, what do you think they should do? And finally, Cyber Peace Foundation, where will it be a couple of years down the line? You see it on the forefront of policy making in this country, or in the forefront of helping businesses understand what the ecosystem is all about and the collaboration piece, what it's about? Go on, your final
So,
thoughts.
so my final words for basically startups and SMEs who are actually active, in fact, or who are also planning. I mean, those who are planning to set up startups. I feel cybersecurity is one thing that you need to consider, because you might lose the entire fame overnight if you get defaced. So that is one thing that I would suggest. Take the subject seriously, and we are here to help. There are individuals, organizations who are there to help, who are there to share resources. Just in case if you don't have the necessary resources, we are there to help. And that's what with Cyber Peace Foundation we see, that we kind of become a kind of a platform, a kind of a resource center. And through that resource center, we are able to push resources so that nobody needs to create a new resource, or nobody needs to reinvent the entire wheel. So we create the resource and disseminate the resource to everyone. So that's what I see our role, in fact. And if you talk about policy making and the way I look at cyber peace now, maybe 5 years down the line, I see cyber peace going different countries. Like, we also don't wish to keep ourselves limited to India. Now recently we started expanding to Africa. We set up a very small base in Africa, center of excellence, and slowly we plan to go to the other countries. So that's what we see. And in terms of policy, in terms of internet governance, in terms of pursuing the, our main vision of a peaceful cyberspace, that's what we see, that we'll be contributing on different aspects that the cyberspace has, whether it comes to inclusion outreach, whether it comes to research and development, or policy. We see ourselves contributing on all the different verticals of the cyberspace.
Vineet, you were also telling me about the cybersecurity challenge and also Center of Excellence for Cybersecurity. You want to elaborate on these two, please?
Yes. So, what Cyber Peace Foundation is organizing is the Global Cyber Peace Challenge. Now, the first edition happened in 2017, where we had two different tracks. We had the capture the flag exercise, where we had different teams, different hackers who were given different scenarios to hack, and the best ones actually won the challenge. And the second one was the Peaceathon. The idea of Global Cyber Peace Challenge is that there are different problems that the cyberspace has, different challenges that the cyberspace has. So we kind of crowdsource ideas. We get people from, again, different walks of life. They come together, they solve the challenges that we list. This time we have challenges like stock aware, we have challenges like misinformation, deep fake. So these are the challenges that are listed. So people come, people solve the challenges, and then finally we are able to actually reward the best of the teams. The second one, the Global Cyber Peace Challenge 2.0, which we are organizing this time, we have one more challenge this time, which is the Cyber Strategy Challenge. In this, in fact, we are inviting policymakers, we are inviting the cyber diplomats who are there, who can come together. For example, the attack that happened at Aramco. So this was something that where the technology was involved. So giving them different kinds of scenario. For example, if an attack like that happens, how would diplomats respond? What kind of strategy should they bring in so that they can effectively respond? How would the incident response teams respond? So all that has been clubbed this time in the Global Cyber Peace Challenge. So that's one. The second one is the Centers of Excellence. Now, the COEs are a beautiful concept. And I would say the best example that I can give for a kind of a good partnership between academia, industry, government, and the civil society. So what we are trying to build is, again, centers of excellence across India, and also these clusters, which are the ecosystem, I would say, the cyber security ecosystems across the country. So for example, any startups or SME who feels they need maybe additional help. For example, CyberPeace has a limited bandwidth. We cannot cater to all, but just in case if anybody needs help, we can ask our center of excellence. It's situated across the India. We have a COE in Manipur, we have COE in Guwahati, we have COE in Calcutta, Mumbai, Bangalore. It's almost across the country. So these centers of excellence, first, they research on new tech, like driverless cars, drones, security of IoT devices, security of the smart cameras, security of the critical infrastructures like road, railways, in fact, power grids. So it's basically they have expertise in different areas, DNS abuse and everything. So they research and then they also collaborate with industry folks. Industry folks can give them problem statements, like any problem statement that they have, and academia, again with partnership of ours and our volunteers, we try to resolve that challenge and build a solution to that particular problem statement. So this is like an ecosystem where it was until last year it was just an India-based ecosystem that we are creating. But considering the global nature of cyberspace, now we have gone out and we are trying to address the problems and the cities where the problems are. Like for example, Nigeria. Nigeria, you must be aware that it's again a global hotbed of cyber criminals. So we have set up a center of excellence in Nigeria, in West Africa, to actually, somehow motivate these guys who are cyber criminals, and we are also trying to work on a rehabilitation program where these cyber criminals can be actually moved from a negative side to a positive side. So all these programs are being worked upon, and this is how the entire COE model is working. And it's a beautiful example of a collaboration. Again, the details are listed on the website. So any industry, academia, if they're interested to collaborate, we have a plug and play model. They all need to just follow the simple standard operating procedures, and we can set up a COE at their premises.
Okay, and who monetizes? How do you monetize this? Again, CSR funds or somebody implements this, the execution.
Yeah, so every CO is different. Like our COEs in Mumbai, they are funded through corporate social CSR grants that we get. In fact, there has been some grants because in one of the COEs we are incubating startups on cybersecurity. So DST had given some grant to incubate those startups on cybersecurity. So we have an incubator there also. So it's a mix of this, and somewhere these COEs are also generating revenue on their own by doing some corporate trainings, industry training, and that also leads to some of the resources that they get. Many places, in fact, industry has been kind enough to give us in-kind support in terms of infrastructure. If not direct cash, it's the infrastructure support that we get. But we have seen a very good response, and in fact, those industry houses, those who have worked with us, have been really appreciating the model because one is they are also getting the right candidate to hire, because this again is a challenge. Many say that cybersecurity, there are huge skill gap, and people are not getting the right people for the right job. In fact, one of the companies who came to us and said that we did hire somebody from one of the premier institutions here in India, and then later realized that he doesn't have that kind of specialization. Then that company took 2 years to train that particular chap on cybersecurity. And after training, he served for 6 months and then he left that company. So that was a challenge. And here, in fact, it also gave them an excellent opportunity to get the best of the talent here, because we actually screen, we get the best of the guys in the centers of excellence. We mentor those guys. So that way they get best of these people. And last but not least, I'd like to mention about the clubs concept. Now we are starting clubs in schools, we are starting clubs in colleges also. So those colleges were not technical in nature, or maybe they are smaller colleges. We are giving an ecosystem to those schools and colleges also. Because if you see Facebook bug bounty list, or maybe some of the bug bounty list that gets circulated by the companies, the best of the hackers are generally in the age group of 8 to 18 years. So what we do is now, in fact, through different competition that we are running with NCRT, CBSE, and other ministries, we are trying to identify the right candidates who can actually be mentored, who can be given an ecosystem, and they can be the potential cybersecurity experts. So the mentoring happens at an early stage, they are mentored early, and that's how things move on. So this is the entire concept of the Global Cyber Peace Challenge, the cyber, in fact, centers of excellence, the cyber peace clubs, and that's how the entire model is running so far.
That's very well said, Vineet. And I hope you corporates watching, you need centers of excellence, especially the Indian corporate and SMBs. You will need to set up centers of excellence if you want to really focus on IT, cybersecurity as a protector of your company's data, because you're all going to be digital and digital transformation is real. But without cybersecurity, digital transformation is nothing but a leaking tap. of water. All the best to you, and you have your story support. If you're a startup watching this, go down to the Cyber Peace Foundation. You have various resources there that can help you. Write to Vineet's team; they'll help you. If you're a corporate or a government agency, or even a government department wanting to understand what does cybersecurity mean to your department, just go there and meet Vineet and his team. They're going to help you out. So, Vineet, all the best to Cyber Peace Foundation. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much for being on your story.
Thank you, Vishal, and it's a really pleasure to be here, and thanks for your time.